You might need that. I just sent Rachel the link to the live stream. Nick had posted it. I didn't know yet.
Yeah, early this morning. I guess Desi and Carlars here. Just see, just trying to. Go get the taco. Okay, he should not have had to make this one by himself. No. Well, I thought he had it.
Yeah, I worked for Great Basin Internet Services. Their son, told Tom, what 10 minutes, this is ridiculous.
I want some with them. Are they? That's why I want to get the whole room here.
My daughter too.
I know. I'm going over there. Wait for my bar.
I guess I should have them.
You were the highlight of the night. He was trying to calm. Everything started at one time. That would be appalled. That would be 10 minutes late. This is not good. We should not be holding the house. Right, all lock the cars.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the response. We're going to get started at the top. John's former high school students up at Kalama in Washington wanted to share a little video with us. So their choir recorded Homeward Bound. So we're going to kick things off with a little music.
In the quiet, misty morning, when the moon has gone to bed, when the sparrows stop their singing,
rise. I'm just kidding, it's not that kind of a board. You can sit down. I started off with an applause break, so it could only go downhill. It's a good way to start. I'm glad you all actually did that, because there's a sing-along later, and now I know you're all joiners. Mom planned all of this. Everyone who was speaking, she wanted to speak. Everybody who was singing, she wanted to sing. Everyone she wanted to play piano wasn't available today. But Anne was kind enough to. Kidding, I love you, Mom. Mom Libby. Oh, you're. So yeah, if you don't like the programming, you're gonna get haunted. This is what Mom wanted. And then yeah, she wanted to make sure that everybody had a good time, that there was laughter, that there was singing, that there was joy, that there was music, that there was food. And then to make sure all that happened, she chose me, the son that sometimes gets paid to tell inappropriate jokes in dive bars, to come here in what used to be a church and try to honor her. We'll see how that goes. Right before we started, John mentioned that Mom would be so pissed off that we started 10 minutes late. Congratulations, everybody is getting 10 free haunting minutes. Redeem them at any time. Yeah. When Mom was, when she was thinking of who she wants to sing, who she wants to talk and everything, Dad volunteered his services. Mom quickly, she fixed that. And we had a little problem with one of the singers earlier, and he again offered his services in honor of Mom. We refused. Yeah, I probably should have introduced myself. I don't think I know everybody here. My name's Nick. I'm Mom's middle son, Pat's middle son. Not Mom to all of you. And yeah, I'm just here to move things along, make sure everybody's having a good time, introduce people. And one little story I want to tell you quick before I bring up the first person. Halfway in the middle of taking care of Mom, I got the idea of getting my very first tattoo, and she helped me design it, and I got it on my left butt cheek. It says nothing is permanent. For my first tattoo, I wanted something ironic and just a little bit cheeky. And in the middle of it, there's a bare tree. That's from a picture that Mom has hanging up in her bedroom. I still have no idea where the picture came from. I told her I wanted to include a tree. She was kind of pointing at it. Yeah, not bad. But yeah, it's not. The point of the tattoo isn't just be stupid, which I really like to do. It's kind of point enough for me. It's a reminder of the Buddhist doctrine of impermanence. That though the tattoo is going to be on me for the rest of my life, eventually I'm going to die. The flesh will rot away. Even the tattoo will no longer be here. It's a reminder to myself. It's important to stay in the moments. Live your life now. It guides you through the bad moments. 'Cause bad moments, they're permanent as well. You get through that pain. The good moments, you should live in it and savor it, because those are going to pass too. That helped me in the last few months with Mom. There was a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, so much beauty. Glad that you all came today. Glad everybody who's watching. We can celebrate. And with that, I'm going to bring up our first speaker of the day. She's my godmother and one of my favorite people in the entire world. She has amazing stories. She grew up right around the corner from Mom. She was her best friend, her cousin, her gypsy sister. I'm going to let her explain to you what that is. Bring up Mary Jo Kemp.
Thank you, Nick. It's a tough act to follow. I'll try. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Jo, and I'm too short for this mic. And I'm honored and I'm touched to be asked to speak here today. Pat and I were cousins. Her father and my mother were siblings. And from the very beginning, we were close. We were born in the same year. I won't tell you which year, but we were born in the same year. Neither of us had sisters, and we always lived close to one another. We had a large, extended family, so there were many picnics, birthdays, holidays. In fact, I have a picture of the two of us as toddlers, sitting together under one of those metal Christmas trees that they used to have in those days. Ornaments all over it, and gifts in front of it, and huge smiles on our faces. She was as close as any sister I could have had. I've sometimes heard these types of relationships described as sister cousins or sisters by heart, and those described as two. We called ourselves gypsy sisters. We decided one day when we were children that surely we were more than cousins, and we decided then and there that we must instead have been born as sisters, but that gypsies had abducted us as babies and raised us in separate families. Separate families who lived on different sides of the same block, but yeah. It was the imagination of children, but the sentiment, the bond, and the name stuck for the rest of our lives. As life went on, we spent our summers playing jacks on Pat's front steps. I can't remember who won, but she was pretty darn good at that. And hide and seek on summer evenings. From 7th grade on, through college, we went to school together. There's a picture of us standing on, in fact, it's out front, of us standing on Pat's front steps, the first day of 7th grade, dressed in our knee-length dresses, white tennis shoes, anklets, and those swoopy glasses. Those of you of a certain age will remember those glasses. So proud, and yet so geeky. When she moved to Minneapolis, I took my first ever plane ride to see her. When I got married, Pat was my maid of honor, and when she married Dave, I was hers. When my daughter Christy was born, Pat was her godmother, and later my children's daycare provider. She was always there. When she moved to Salt Lake City, and later Carson City and Reno, I missed her a great deal. But thanks to Ma Bell and AT&T, our connection was still firmly in place. There were calls every few months, and always on our birthdays. Even during those years when babies, jobs, and life's duties kept us busy, our phone marathons were long and legendary. Yeah. In fact, Dave told me recently that when he heard the two of us on the phone, he knew he had at least 2 hours to himself. When Nick asked me to say a few words today, all these memories and a million others flooded my mind. And I asked myself, how do you condense a lifetime of friendship down to a few simple sentences? But then I thought, although all of these lifetime moments live on in our hearts and in our minds, at the end of the day, they serve a greater purpose. Because it's these moments that create a legacy of love. I saw a quote the other day that read, when we lose someone we love, we must learn not to live without them, but to live with the love they left behind. Pat left her love behind with a legacy of faithfulness, loyalty, truthfulness, service, and so much more. Characteristics that could always be counted on. In conclusion, I called Pat a few days before she passed away. I could tell she was weak. Our conversation was uncharacteristically brief. But as we said goodbye, I told her I loved her, and she said she loved me too. Those were the very last words we ever said to each other. I take comfort in that, and I say it again today. I love you, Pat. I will miss you sorely. And I will hold you in my heart until we meet again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary Jo. So, up next, we have some more music for you. It wouldn't be a live performance unless there were a bunch of technical difficulties. Here we go. Hannah Shack singing Wonderful World Over the Rainbow.
Sorry, Mom.
Oh, yeah. I'll explain later.
the rain and red roses too. I'll watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. It's the skies of blue, and I see clouds of white and the brightness of day. I like the dark, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Where troubles melt like lemon drops, high above the chimney tops with lamps. You'll find me out somewhere over the
So yeah, as I was saying, it's not live theater without technical difficulties. And you know, we had some other singers planned, but they were unable to make it for some personal reasons. I hope they're doing okay. And Hannah Schaub was kind of last minute pulled in for us. That's John's wife's, Lily's little sister. And she was amazing. Thank you, Hannah, for doing that. I offered to pop on a Hawaiian shirt and strum a ukulele in the pool. Tom and I later. The after party. Next up, I think most of the people here know our next speaker. Pat had many lives. She was a flight nurse. She was a teacher. She was a nanny. She was a mom. She was a bureaucrat until she finally was able to get out of that. And she spent most of her time, it was really her passion, was theater and the arts and helping kids. And I see so many people here who you were her kids too. Consider you all her children. She would bring up all the time. She'd be looking at Facebook like, oh, so-and-so's in LA now, or they're going to college at this place. Mom, I don't know who any of these people are. But she was always so excited. She followed so many of you, and she was always so happy to see you succeed. And even if you just did one show and all you did was dance in the background, she wanted to make sure that you had the best time of your life and that you learned something. She was the person behind the scenes doing boring administrative stuff that rarely noticed, and nobody who's artistic really wants to do. And she did it unselfishly. That's one of the big lessons that Mom taught me. You do things that you're passionate about, people that you care about, and you just do it. You don't do it for accolades. You don't do it for applause. You don't do it for any other reason other. And the next person was Mom's partner in crime, from Brewery Arts Center, the Backstage Kids, to Wild Horse Theater. They've been to the trenches many a time. Really, really pleased to hear what Carol Scott has to. Carol Scott, everybody.
Well, the first thing I would never held the house for 10 minutes. I was appalled. And this is not like really long, it's just really big so I can see it. So I'm here to remember my friend and colleague, or as Pat and I used to say, partners in crime at Wild Horse Children's Theater, Backstage Kids. I'm going to get through this. I always tell the kids to focus on that, so it's going to go. Sometimes the smallest things take up the most space in your heart. That quote from Winnie the Pooh, one of Pat's favorite shows, brings true today. In life, it's those little things that are so meaningful to us and become our favorite memories. The year was around 1999. And Backstage Kids, our first theater company at the BAC, was about 2 years old. Pat brought John in to audition for Guys and Dolls Jr. And I want you to picture this. 11-year-old John comes in with his mom and knocks our socks off with his audition. But John is maybe about 4 feet tall, probably one of our youngest boys. So what brilliant casting idea did we have in mind for John? Big Julie, of course. Big Julie. Probably the biggest, hulkiest stud of them all. John and Pat were thrilled, and Pat became drama mama and had that proudly displayed on her license plate for years to come. From that moment on, she was around to help out during our productions for Backstage Kids and never left. So this one small thing, this casting of John in Guys and Dolls, was the beginning of a friendship and business partnership. I didn't tell you all to turn your phones off like I usually do before we start a show. Perfect, this is what would happen. A partnership that lasted over 23 years and 2 children's theater incarnations. Pat and I were like Oscar and Felix, 2 opposite personalities that blended together to make the magic happen. When Wild Horse Children's Theater started in 2014, Pat was the first person I called to initiate the company, start our nonprofit, and become executive producer. Pat took over with her front of house producer extraordinaire abilities, and we understood each other perfectly with a nod or a few words. And this brings me to why I'm standing here in front of you today. not just to explain my friendship with Pat throughout the years, but I'm here representing every child who was part of Backstage Kids and Wild Horse Children's Theater. That would be thousands of young people who Pat touched in the 23 years that she smiled and greeted every one of them as they walked into the theater for every rehearsal and show. One of our actors, who's grown up now, living in LA, who knew Pat well, said this: Pat believed in me and made me see something in myself I didn't know was there. She had the ability to make us rise to the best versions of ourselves. Plus, she always brought Rice Krispie treats. Always. Simple as that. Pat changed lives. And I'm sure, and I know, there are many of you in the audience today. It's not only the kids that Pat touched. Since Pat has been gone, there have been so many times that a board member or staff member would inevitably say something like, "You know what Pat did with this?" Or, "You know how Pat handled this?" Or opening a huge box of mystery equipment in the office, we would just look at each other blankly and say, "WWPD, what would Pat do?" Pat, my friend, you were mother, wife, friend, sister, daughter, grandma, drama mama, producer, adventurer, and warrior. Since love is forever, you will always be here in our hearts at every curtain that goes up. You will carry forward your gifts to light the way, your compassion and humor, the light in your eyes, your caring touch, your laughter. We remember you, and remember and cherish the small things. So I'll end with this one small quote from Pooh to his best friend Piglet. If there ever comes a day when we can't be together, keep me in your heart. I'll stay there forever. Now, looks not right, I would like to introduce an amazing group of young singers from Wild Horse Children's Theater who were lucky enough to know and be loved by Pat, singing a song about finding the magic in the small, everyday things by finding yourself and following your dreams. And this song was picked by Pat for the Wild Horse kids to sing today, Rainbow Connection.
What's on the other side?
visions, but only illusions. Rainbows have nothing to hide.
So we've been told, and some choose to believe it. But I know they're wrong, wait and see.
Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me.
We said that every wish would be heard and answered, in which our world would start. Somebody thought of that, and someone believed it. Look what it's done so far. What's so amazing that keeps us stargazing? What do we think we might see? Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. All of us under its spell, we know that it's probably magic. Have you been asleep? And have you heard voices? I heard them calling my name. This is the sweet sound that calls beyond sailors. The voice might be one and the same. I've heard it too many times to ignore it. It's something that I'm supposed to be. Someday we'll find it, the rainbow connection, the lovers, the dreamers, and me. La, 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 la,
There. Close enough. Okay, so thank you everyone from Wild Horse for coming and singing those one of Mom's favorite songs. For our last hair for some reason. Maybe we should have shaved. So yeah, our last speaker of the evening. I don't know how to introduce him. He's my little brother. He's smart. No, that was the anecdote I was going to say. So Mom, forever she had a license plate that said Drama Mama, and once she became a grandma, she wanted it to change it to say Drama Grandma. So it said DRMAGMA, which comes out to say Dr. Magma. And a couple of weeks ago, Dad, myself, and John were going up to John's graduation for his doctorate. And we were taking Dr. Magma up there, driving up there, and we stopped in Weed with Mount Shasta in the shadows. And we were in the shadows of Mount Shasta. And we stopped at we were getting gas, and someone came up to us, like, are you volcanologists? Yeah. No further explanation. He didn't even ask any more questions. All right. But John is actually a doctor, and just an amazing person, and an amazing writer, and he does a lot. And I look forward to hear what he has to say, so give it up for Johnny Bear.
So speaking of the doctorate, I think what Mom really wanted me to do right now was to read my dissertation. So settle in, we have a couple chapters to get through, and there are snacks afterwards though. So as I look around this room, I recognize that several of you could be up here providing a fitting testimony. Take two. Fitting testimony for my mom's life. This is simply a perspective from a son. I hope that you will share your stories with me later today or in the coming days, weeks, months, or even years. Memories are an opportunity to visit those we love, after all. So this seems like an appropriate time to mention that I invite you to open your arms to whatever emotions come to you in the following talk. Laugh, cry, make eye contact with people if you want. Don't if that's frightening for you. My mom hoped for a celebration of life that was full of music, food, and love. And so we're doing that in the spirit of what she wanted. So for Christmas 2018, I wrote my mom a letter. In the letter, I thanked her for not giving up on me. I thanked her for being relentlessly present. This presence is what made it possible for her and my dad to allow me to be myself. I wore pink Converse as a kid. I drove a purple Flintstone-style car. I wore a three-piece suit to soccer fields, full of a briefcase full of toys. As an elementary school student, I asked for a whiteboard for Christmas. It was this relentless presence that gave my mom and my dad the direction to dive full force into being present at soccer games, martial arts, plays, whatever other activity we dreamed up. Before my mom was drama mama, she was soccer mama. When I think of my mom, I think of an equal measure of Midwest stoicism and flair. At one point, my mom said to me, "John, nothing you do will surprise me. I grew up in the 60s. I'm sure you all heard her say at least once, "It is what it is," or "kiss it and learn to love it." She balanced this unwavering determination and strength with the purple hair, the tutus, the dollar store shopping sprees, and a beautiful way of making small moments become lasting memories. It was this translation of ER nurse and flight nurse mixed with camp counselor and nanny that led to this tremendous soul. In the past months, I realized how grief tends to play with memory. You forget things too easily and remember other moments too readily. In the past months, I distinctly remember the pitch of my mom's voice when she hollered out the back door when it was time for me to come in. I remembered her setting the alarm on her phone to get a few more moments of rest before heading to the theater for rehearsal. I remember listening to my mom sing in this room when it still was St. Teresa's, the spirituality moving through her voice with an authentic sound. One of my favorite brief stories is when I started kindergarten, and I stood on the pavement aghast at the chaos that is an elementary school playground. I looked up at my mom and said, maybe we should try this again next year. I don't remember what she said, but I remember it being calming, and so I went in. On a similar theme, my mom would volunteer in my elementary school classroom, and I would mysteriously need to go home because I was sick when she was there, knowing that I would feel better once I got home and was watching movies with my mom. In 2012, my mom and dad stayed with Lily and I in our 2-bedroom duplex. On the last night, we told them they needed to vacate our 2nd bedroom because we would need it. We announced that we were expecting our first child. I could still hear the pitch of excitement when we announced that news. My mom loved many people and many things in her life, but her grandkids topped the list 11 times out of 10. It was this joy that fueled much of her last 9 years. It was this love and care that gave Nancy the knowledge to ask for a grandma day, or to one day decide she was packing her bags and running away to grandma's house. It was in the adventures that Mary would take going to rehearsal or coming to visit us in Washington or Oregon. It was this joy that made it so my mom would find slippers, bathrobes, toys, pajamas, and assorted gifts in whatever character the grandkids desired. It was this joy that led to grandma camps, the gift being in the memories they created together. It was this love that led her to preserve a handprint smudged on a cupboard door. It was this devotion that led her to give Becky and Lily the dream that all new moms desire above all else, the opportunity to take an uninterrupted shower. My mom and dad have served as the guardrails for my life. Whenever I would deviate from a path, they would guide me back to the center. Whenever I lost the strength or wherewithal to keep going, my mom would often lend support and follow it with a simple phrase, one foot after the other. It was often in these moments where my mom and dad would see something in me that I didn't know was there. When I was facing a particularly difficult time in my teaching career, my mom would send me daily texts with simple messages of support. Quote, "You are exactly where you need to be, just breathe." It is this simple love and devotion that was so freely given to me and to anyone she met that makes my mom so memorable. I've been thinking about how often my parents offered someone a seat at their table, whether literal or metaphorical. I invite you to look around the room. Each person is here because of my mom. She loved you. Recently, I stumbled across this quote. Grief was the celebration of love. Those who could feel grief were lucky to have loved. I would talk to her on the phone, and she would share updates about her theater kids as if you were part of the family. Nick and I didn't plan this, by the way, just to find it would be dishonorable of me to say that I always knew exactly who she was talking about. But I celebrated that success nonetheless because you're one of her kids. My relationship with my mom often centered on the theater. I watched her give the speech, you all know the speech, at the beginning of auditions. I watched her encourage kids to just sing it to me, sing it into my ear, if they were too shy to be up in front of everyone. It was this impression that made it so I didn't second guess listening to a kid give an audition with us both sitting under the table. One person said it this way, quote, "No one was more devoted to bringing young people and theater together. I am so thankful for the opportunity she gave me to teach. There was your mother, coordinating, producing, and always lending support, and just being so wonderful. What a legacy she leaves in her wake." I heard from several kids, and they each shared a similar sentiment. Quote, "There's a drama mama-sized hole in the theater community forever." Quote, "She forever changed my life as she did so many lives in this community." Quote, to this day, I remember how welcoming your parents always were to me, whether it was working for them in the theater or just hanging out at your house. I always felt like one of the family, and at that stage in my life, it was everything. Your mom was honestly one of the truest souls I've ever known. End quote. My mom was devoted to you, her Wild Horse kids, her Backstage kids, her CHS kids, even her PPI kids. A true soul, drama mama, changed lives. Over the years, I would feel the love return to her often, but particularly over the last summer into fall. It was in the visits from Liz and Carol. It was in Lily leading the charge on the 70th birthday party, and my aunts and uncles and many of you traveling to be there. It was in the song performed by my sister-in-law, Hannah. It was in the funny messages Kathy would send. It was in the visit from Mary Jo. It was in the meals provided by Robin and others. It was in the moments that I bumped into Alan and Colleen and they offered support and an ear. It was in Millie drawing a Christmas picture to show my mom and snuggling in bed to read her stories. I recognize this is not an exhaustive list of the love we received. One author says, quote, you learn how much grief is about language, the failure of language and the grasping for language, end quote. I hope to find the accurate language to say thank you to the people that returned the love and devotion to my mom. In 2020, we moved back to Nevada, and it felt like living two realities. The one, recognizing that the medical news was becoming less optimistic. The other, knowing that my mom was the fighter, the most resilient person I've ever known. One of my mom's favorite statements was, if I only had a magic wand. Sometimes the size of the magic wand would change based on the task. This was echoed one day when Nancy and Emerson were talking about Grandma, and Emerson said, don't worry, a superhero will come help. The truth is, one did. My brother Nick made epic mac and cheese with possibly too many types of cheese. Possibly. He filled water bottles, he tracked medicine, he watched countless cooking shows, he lifted spirits, he bandaged, he listened, he protected, but most of all, he made sure Mom was comfortable. Nick, from all of us, thank you. There were several moments where I hoped to alleviate pain for my mom, just as she had done for me so many times. It became clear that the best I could do was be relentlessly present. The rides to and from the doctor's offices got quieter, and we started making some of those final decisions. Despite the difficulty, one day in early November, my dad, Nick, and I were in the room. My mom was talking more about the celebration of life. She was making sure we had the celebration planned. My dad offered to sing, and that inspired a tremendous response from my mom. No, you're not. The producer, the drama mama, was back. Around the same time, we were instructed to say our goodbyes and to share words, that hearing is one of the last senses to go. My mom and I talked often, but the action that summarizes our relationship, I think, is a quiet hug or leaning my head on her shoulder. When it was my turn, I repeated some of the same things that I said in 2018. I thanked her, I told her I loved her, I told her that she was one of my best friends. I told her how I had a good life with her. Again, to turn to a close. Grief telling you it is over, and your heart saying it's not. Grief trying to shrink your love to the past, and your heart saying it's present. Memories arrive in cycles where relatively mundane experiences with my mom come back with force, just as her presence still influences my life, just not in the same way as before. Toward the end, my mom would occasionally open her arms wide as if she was preparing to embrace him. Mary Oliver says, quote, "To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing that your own life depends on it, and when it comes time to let it go, to let it go." I invite you to continue to hold my mom close and to keep her there. And when you're ready, open your arms. But take comfort. The love will return, and in that, you'll find my mom.
The sleeve on my sweater's all soggy. It was a very hard year in many, many ways. And so many of you made a hard time a lot easier. I want to thank all of you who helped us through a very difficult time. There really are angels among us. And speaking of segues, our next our final singer is singing Angels Among Us, accompanied by the talented and amazing, and we're all very glad that she's here. And please welcome Heather again.
It was getting late.
Thank you again to Heather Canfield. It was beautiful. So, this used to be a church, a Catholic church. And I went through confirmation here, my first Holy Communion. I was even an altar boy. One time during Mass, I fell asleep. Right there. And anybody who grew up with St. Teresa's knows of Father Jerry, and just what an amazing orator he was. I think that's mostly why I came to church, was just to hear him speak. He had this amazing way of just wrapping everything up into a nice little bow at the end of the sermon, and sending you out into the world with this inspiration and this joy. Like, I'm going to go forth to love and serve the Lord. I'm going to make things happen, and everything's great and amazing. And we planned this thing 6 months out so that everybody would have time to travel, and hopefully that COVID would be in the downturn, and so that we could all gather. I thought in that 6 months, maybe I'd somehow be able to come up with a Father Jerry moment, that I'd be able to think of something at the end of this to send you out into the world, and you'll be inspired, and you'll live your life more fully and more truly, and, or whatever. But the more that I thought about it, the more that it seemed like a disservice to Mom's life, to her 70 years on this planet, to try to distill it down into a pithy saying on a Saturday afternoon. She was much more than that. She wasn't a lesson that I learned after trying to take care of her. She was a full life, a full, beautiful life. And she's not just a lesson to learn. She was a person who was living on in our memories. And the same as all of you. All of you are important, beautiful individuals who deserve love, respect, and dignity. That's what I want to give to you today. There's really no intrinsic meaning to anything that doesn't exist. But you know what does exist? Sandwiches. And right after this, we have a bunch of sandwiches and snacks and great things over in the ballroom at the Brew Yard Center. So if you don't know where that is, just follow everybody. I want to thank everybody again for coming today, for celebrating Pat, just for being here. We'll have plenty of time for conversation and stories and all that. And please, please, please eat some sandwiches. We overbought. And we don't want to eat sandwiches for them to eat. I was going to try to make you all rise again, but you know no tricks. So with that, go forth and do whatever.